Well, there's no football game, so let's give out some fake awards. Hi guys, my name is Zach and welcome back to Zach Talks Hawks, the place where we talk Seattle football content and where we can engage in conversation over what has been going on with Seattle football and what might be going on here in the future. Unfortunately, there's not too many things going on this week because Seattle finds themselves on a bye coming off of a victory against Jacksonville, and I'm really excited for this kind of fun topic that was inspired by a Twitter post from Seattle's football page, and it asked the general public, if you could give out some awards for some mid-season efforts brought by the team, who would win in some selective categories. And I have come up with my own list over who would be some of the, mid-season honorables, mid-season award winners, and I want to go over some of my thoughts with you as we take a look back on what certainly has been a up and down season for Seattle. You're going to see up here the first three awards that I'm going to give out, and that is your offensive MVP, your defensive MVP, and your special teams MVP. And we really get to see here three leaders of this team that shouldn't really come as a surprise to many. We see up here for your offensive MVP is going to be DK Metcalf, and I am struck by just how fortunate we were to get this guy out of Ole Miss as he fell in the draft and really landed in a great spot with Seattle, and took a little while under Geno Smith in these last few games to really get on the same page with the backup quarterback. But with all that said, DK finds himself in a middle of a very good year, 39 receptions for 508 yards and 8 touchdowns. That leads the team by quite a large margin in terms of receptions to touchdown ratio. And I really want to talk about kind of the why. Why is DK the offensive MVP over some other guys that are vital to this team as well? You actually look at the stats, and Tyler Lockett actually has more reception yards than DK. That has to do partially with because he and Geno really seem to click over these last three games more so than what DK could do. But ultimately, Russ hasn't been in. We're going to be talking about the running game here a little later on. We're going to be talking about other notables, especially on the defensive side, but really offensively, there hasn't been too many points of consistency for this team. And one of the things has always remained the same. No matter what quarterback is piloting this team, DK Metcalf needs to get involved for this offense to work. And so it just makes sense that DK is your guy at the offensive MVP mark. The next player that we're going to be talking about that is up here on the screen is, of course, linebacker number 54, 10-year vet out of Utah State, Bobby Wagner. Right now, Bobby Wagner is on a blistering pace this season for tackles. His career year for tackles was back in 2016 when he had 164 combined tackles. Halfway through this season, and remember, there's an extra game involved this year, Bobby has 86 combined tackles this year as he once again is cementing himself quite possibly as the top linebacker in the NFL. It's amazing the run that Wagner has had. And ultimately, he, like DK, receives this award because he is the consistency that comes with this unit, right? As much as this offense has ebbed and changed, DK remains the consistent factor. You could say the same thing about Bobby Wagner in the defensive side as well, right? Corners have changed. Schemes have changed. Defensive strategies have changed, especially over the last 3 to 4 games. And what's consistent? Bobby Wagner showing up as the heart and soul of that defense, making every tackle that comes his way. It's been really fun to see Wagner kind of step back into the limelight. He, as I've said before, has 86 tackles right now, so he's on pace to eclipse the 160 tackle mark, and that is by far his best season in numerous years. So I'm very excited over this resurgence in Bobby Wagner as he continues what will most certainly be a Hall of Fame career. He's been so good for so long. And then ultimately on the special teams unit, we're going to go with Michael Dixon. Double punt, right? What more can I say? But in all honesty, Michael Dixon has done everything that has been called on him and then some in terms of keeping Seattle in as many games as possible. We've seen slugfests this year that have demanded a lot out of Dixon, and with the offensive struggles that we have seen throughout this season, it's so important to have a punter that's willing to come in and get those punts inside the 20, and there's arguably not a better guy in the NFL that does that than Michael Dixon. So number 4, as you know from this past offseason, is locked up for quite some time in a Seahawks uniform, and I couldn't be more happy to have him on the team. A guy that really rallies that special teams unit and really makes sure that that part of Seattle's game is vibrant and effective week in and week out. We're going to take a look here on your next slide for some other awards that are worth mentioning here, and some fun awards, maybe some categories that you weren't really used to in talking about, but I am certainly excited to dive into. First, let's talk about John Radigan, the selection from Army as your best rookie this year. Now, I picked this selection based mainly off of his special teams play, as well as quite possibly an upside factor as I look forward as the season progresses forward. Let me explain myself here. There are multiple sources that have different numbers. Seattle Twitter says he's got 7 special teams tackles. There are some statistical outlets that say he has 5. Nevertheless, it's almost always on special teams where I see this linebacker that is quick, that is extremely athletic. He's versatile, making big hits, big plays time and time again. He's got 7 tackles. That's the number I'm going to stick with. That have made a difference on the special team side of the ball. And the reason why I'm putting him here as the best rookie of the year, because I am also looking forward for John Radigan. It's been no surprise that Jordan Brooks has often in pass coverage looked stiff, and I hope that this bye week fosters kind of a level of creativity within Ken Norton to take a look at this rookie who has done everything that's been asked of him on special teams. He's got the background to be a physical but extremely quick and shifty presence on the defensive side, to maybe integrate him in some of those more athletic pass sets where the linebackers are demanded to participate more in pass coverage instead of run defense. That would relieve Brooks of some situations that it's very clear he's at the very least uncomfortable in, and can give a guy like Radigan a chance to show, okay, out here on a live field, this is what I can do, especially in pass coverage. I don't think that's going to happen for him, but I think he deserves a shout out for the best rookie in terms of what he has done and hoping and praying of what he might be doing moving forward. Also, is your Best Newcomer award here on the docket, and I want to talk to you about Alex Collins, the running back from Arkansas, who's really having a bit of a resurgence in terms of rushing yards, career output that deserves mentioning. I know Alex Collins was on this team last year towards the end of the season. And really, we only got a very small glimpse of what Alex Collins could do. He only played 3 games for Seattle. He ran for it says 77 yards on 18 attempts. That sounds about right. We had a very small glimpse of what he could do. But he averaged over 4 yards a carry last year, and that was a big reason why Pete and company decided we're going to give Collins a shot to make the roster this year. And I counted him on the Best Newcomer because he's still fairly fresh coming out of 2020 and into 2021. And this year, guys, Alex Collins has 7 games under his belt. He's got 304 yards of rushing, and he hasn't been 100% for at least a game and a half of those 7 games. And it is important to know that Collins is poised for his best statistical season since 2017, his second year in the league with the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm very impressed over the stability that Collins has been able to provide us in the running game. And that has been a big question mark for us, right? With Chris Carson being plagued with injuries over and over again, right? If we could take him as a bell cow, we would, but we can't. And so who's left, right? Is it going to be DJ Dallas or Travis Homer or Rashad Penny? In fact, it's going to be none of those guys. It's going to be Alex Collins. He runs like Marshawn Lynch. He's a bruiser. He's also got this extra gear kind of hidden inside where if he gets out in open space, he can really move. So I really believe that Best Newcomer is made for Alex Collins. He might not be new to this team in terms of just this season, but he's new enough where I think he should be lumped into this category because no other newcomer, in my opinion, has had more effect on the stability of this squad than Alex Collins. Also taking a look here where we see who your comeback player of the midseason mark is, and that's going to be Darrell Taylor. Last year, Seattle went out and got a really talented defensive end from Tennessee, and then Darrell Taylor was instantly hurt. Many thought that perhaps he would not be suiting up for Seattle ever again. And we just kind of waited to see if this high upside pick was going to translate well for the Seattle Seahawks. And this year it most certainly has, with 4 sacks on the year and a forced fumble to go with it. Darrell Taylor is quietly and steadily making a name for himself, rushing the passer and being a force on the outside in an area defensively where Seattle has been weak over the last few years. And it's really great to see Darrell Taylor kind of hitting his potential a little bit for us, especially coming off of an injury that sidelined him for an entire year. And there's so much uncertainty behind his future. It's great to see this guy coming out and just taking advantage of every snap that's given to him. Seattle's depth out there is really big. We're going to be talking about another defensive end here in a moment, but it's good to see Taylor take advantage of the snaps that are given to him. I hope that he has a big second half and might be able to double that sack number. That'd be a really good year for the year 1, sort of, year 2 man out of Tennessee. Taking a look here at your last slide in terms of your awards, I want to spend some time here and just talk to you about some honorable mentions that I believe need to be talked about in terms of guys that aren't going to win any awards, guys that aren't going to make any headlines, but deserve to be talked about just a little bit here while we have this platform, while we can talk here on YouTube. And the first guy that we're going to talk about might ruffle some feathers because he didn't win enough games for Seattle, but it's going to be Geno Smith. He threw 5 touchdowns, threw 1 interception, had a costly fumble in the end of the Pittsburgh Steelers game. It can be argued that he's the reason why Seattle lost those first 2 games that he started. But at the end of the day, Geno Smith did exactly what you want a backup quarterback to do. Play all these games and just simply have a chance to win the game by the end, right? And that's exactly what he did. He did that for all 3 opponents that he played. He played a really bad Jacksonville team, and he played very, very well, as is expected, right? You don't play down to really bad opponents. You step up, you excel, and he most certainly did that against Jacksonville and their defense. But I think Geno's getting a bad rap from a lot of Seattle sports fans because he didn't win enough, right? And then he lost. Like, he's the reason why they lost those 2 games. I don't look at his tenure that way. I think that, was Seattle limited on offense? Yeah. I think that has more to do with bad coaching than it does player personnel. But at the end of the day, Geno put Seattle in 3 consecutive positions to win games. That's all you can ask for when Russell Wilson's out. And so, honorable mention for Geno Smith, quarterback 2. I am excited to see where this leads for him. Does he demand a restructure? Does he venture out into free agency? And I don't really know his contract situation, so what does it look like for him moving forward in the NFL? Does he get a shot to maybe take the reins elsewhere? I don't know. It'd be cool to see what happens to him moving forward. I'm also going to take a look here at Al Woods. Al Woods is a guy that I really like, not just because he's a journeyman and he's been everywhere, but he's played 11 years in the NFL and he's still playing quality ball at the defensive tackle position. And I think that's worth mentioning is Al Woods was brought onto this team as a run-stopping big guy that can just clog up the lane. And he's done a lot more than that, right? He's got 8 solo tackles. He has a sack on the year. And there have been plays where I have been very impressed with how Al Woods commands the defensive line presence and also draws attention from various offensive lines so that other guys are free to go and get the quarterback. And that wasn't what I expected when Al Woods was brought onto this team, but I'm very pleasantly surprised that every time big number 99 walks out there on the field, I get excited over the fact that there's a possibility he's going to make a big play. It's great to have defensive tackle depth, and he does that position very well. Our third point here is a guy that just needs a shout out. He doesn't really fit in any other category. He has better numbers in terms of tackles and sacks than Al Woods, but that's because Rasheem Green plays defensive end, and it's been great to see Rasheem Green kind of step into himself in the opportunities that are gifted to him out there on the field. He's not out there every play. He's not out there in a way where he can go and affect every snap of every game. That's just not how Seattle is using him. But if we double his output for the year, he'd end up with 18 tackles and 4 sacks. And I think for Rasheem Green and his fan base, that's a great year. Especially, again, we've mentioned it a couple times in this video, how deep Seattle is on the edge and just how much Seattle likes to move those guys in and out of different scheme packages. you can really build a good career resume as a rotational edge rusher with like 4 to 6 sacks a year, and he's doing the work that's called on him. I'd like to see his snap numbers go up here in the future because Rasheem Green has been shuffled around on this depth chart for a little bit too long and deserves some extra playing time with his effort on this team. All right, well, that's it in terms of my analysis for midseason awards for the Seattle Seahawks. I want to hear from you down in the comments. What would you have given? Are there guys that you think deserve more highly coveted roles as the season moves forward? Who are your standouts on this team that you have seen so far? And I hope that you enjoyed the bye week, and I hope we can talk about what Seattle's got in store moving forward here real soon. But before we meet again, I want to urge you to keep talking Hawks, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video, and I will talk to you again about Seattle football real soon.